Hey guys, just wanted to let you know that on the description of the video I'm gonna leave the Telegram group link for you to join that I will explain a bit what you will find on my Telegram basically through this video. So yeah, just enjoy the video. Hello guys, good afternoon and welcome to today's pretty quick review of today's price action, trying to try and get something out of a day that didn't really give us much and try to see if we can learn out of it. Today we had a very aggressive London session, and when that happens, it tends to ruin what happens through New York, right? We either have price going completely against the direction that was set by London, or it just ranges, or in some occasions, which are somewhat rare, compared to others. Price just through New York just follows the trend that was set by London, right? But again, that's something that in my experience barely happens. So when we have a lot of aggression through New York, or maybe through midnight or pre-New York, it just basically tends to ruin what could happen through New York. And that is, in my opinion, kind of what happened today, as we basically didn't have much clear opportunities to take through the morning, and there was only one thing that I was able to catch with paper trading with on a 5-minute fair value gap that we'll discuss in just a second. And the reason I was looking for either direction today was because, well, London was bullish. We had that from basically previous week, from Friday previous week, we have like somewhat of a retracement that began. Yesterday was just that price creating opportunities to go higher at the time. And then today, London was just aggressively going higher, right? And I was just kind of expecting that trend to still continue. And if we manage to catch any opportunities in the meantime, then great. So the reason why I also said that it could be likely for price to go lower was this: a lot of equal highs together. That price just went very aggressively higher, and as soon as it gets past it, it ranges for a bit and then starts changing the direction. The problem that I see with that is that, well, we don't really have any clear 15-minute fair value gap, and on the 5 we do have tiny ones like this one, right? Which is respected here later, but that's nothing that we should worry about for now. Fair value gap in here respected, fair value gap in here mitigated there, fair value gap in here mitigated, and basically that does continue with the trend for, well, through basically pre-New York and a little bit of phase one. But then we see price continue immediately changing the direction after taking this tiny bit of a low and creating a couple of fair value gaps when going higher that we could have identified as potential areas to look for opportunities later on, right? So thing is that we had both directions as a possibility, in my opinion, today. And honestly, direction in my opinion wasn't clear. The fact that London took or caused such a big impulse, I was somewhat not interested on it either. And I basically decided to skip the day today. I was analyzing, looking to see what could happen through basically the session, but never really took anything outside of paper trading, on which I took, I believe, 2 losses and 1 win, which we'll see in a couple of minutes. That could still be running, as I was kind of aiming at this, but didn't really expect price to get all the way down there today. And yeah, so here's the thing, right? As I've explained multiple times, my strategy, or the way that I apply ICT's concepts, better said, is that I want to see a clear run on liquidity, an immediate displacement lower that generates fair value gaps for price to trade into, and then in the lower timeframes we look for the exact same thing to happen. Most of the times I don't really wait for a market shift nor a run on liquidity in the lower timeframes, but if you do wait for that, you will have less losses, less opportunities, and be a bit more precise, right? So this is exactly what we look for in the lower time frame, and that could be our entry to target something in the higher time frame, right, in the 5 or the 15 minutes. So for me today, we did have that, but without much of an impulse, right? Because we had those equal highs that were being respected, and price just took that. We have a market shift on the 5 minute, price creating that fair value gap that is mitigated and respected, continues lower, another fair value gap, and basically again, right, it continues to respect some fair value gaps when going lower. Then we have phase one, which I do understand that easily could go against the trend, which is a little bit of manipulation to then continue with the direction expected, right? And it is somewhat of what happened today, it's just that we didn't really have any clear moment to actually trade. So here's the thing, I said, well, this low as an example was taken as liquidity. To the left, we have multiple 15-minute fair value gaps that price is mitigating, so it creates a fair value gap. So what am I going to do? I'm going to look for entries if price were to trade back into one of these fair value gaps. Thing that as an example I did explain through my Telegram, which I forgot to mention at the beginning of the video, but I will leave the link in the description. But the thing is that I wanted price to do that, and it never really did. Then it was building all of this liquidity, which for me it was both ways. I did understand that it could sweep and go higher, and I also understood that it could sweep, retrace, mitigate some fair value gap, continue lower, right? Both ways were a potentiality for the day, to call it somehow. But the thing is that, in my opinion, or from my point of view, we never really got anything clear till this aggressive move and this aggressive move lower, right? Both aggressive moves basically did give somewhat of an opportunity that we'll see in a second, and that I somewhat tried to take advantage of. So we have this that, as you can see, was not mitigated. The 15-minute was something like this, if I remember correctly. I think it was a bit larger. Might have been something like this. But we'll call it, doesn't really matter. The thing is that this mitigates a 15-minute fair value gap. And we'll leave it to the order block just to have a little bit of a less, how do you say this? Less, well, something just a little bit tinier so it doesn't really bother us on the charts. So let's go to the 1 minute. And again, right, all of this as well, forgot to mention, all of this to the left, all of these multiple highs are somewhat together where liquidity, right? The price was taken when going higher. We even have liquidity here. We then have somewhat of equal highs being created here that are swept, right? As an example, in the 1 minute, if we look at it like that, the 1 minute has multiple fair value gaps that are respected and multiple entries that we could have taken advantage of if we believed that the trend was bearish, right? Overall, if we would have believed that after maybe this couple of highs, maybe this couple of highs, we could have gone for the lower time frames, or maybe after this, and look for fair value gaps such as this one, right? Or well, the ones that were created here. Just that I personally prefer waiting for the 5 minutes to create the 5 or the 15, depending, to create a fair value gap, to then look for those lower time frame displacement and of course entries, right? So price gets to this area, and this is where I took my loss. Was it here or this one? I think it was this one. We'll check the executions later, but I think it was this one. As it causes a reaction, doesn't really cause any kind of market shift nor liquidity sweep, except for, of course, all of the liquidity that we mentioned earlier. Price takes that aggression higher. Decided to take this tiny bit of an entry, I think with half risk than usual, so not the entire risk. And as you can see, it completely fails. No fair value gap to buy from here. Goes aggressively higher. When the fair value gap is too high, I prefer not to take it because my entry should have been here, stop loss all the way down here, so nothing for me to really do on that one. And as you can see at this point, we have swept the liquidity, aggressively going higher. And the reason to that move is that we have sell stops below this level. So it's like there are multiple sell stops on this level, as an example, and the stop loss is maybe right here because people believe that due to support and resistance, or the break and retest theory, we could believe that, well, it broke the level, retest. It's it's basically as high in this case, or as far as it is likely to go, and then continue lower. So stop losses are maybe there, maybe if they're safe, they might put the stop loss all the way up there, but it doesn't really make that much sense for them, right? So that could have been a easy way to understand why price did this cost this retracement. And also, if I remember correctly, we do have a 5-minute fair value gap on that one. Yes, here it is. This tiny bit of a fair value gap, which is more than enough. Price mitigates that and goes aggressively lower. So at that point, I took this. Let me actually show you. I took oh, my bad, that's not the one. I took this buy that ended up in a loss, right? Then took this sell that we'll discuss in a second, and then I took this sell on the 5-minute, on the entire 5-minute, with the stop loss all the way up here, and closed, well, just a few minutes ago. I'm not gonna lie, it was a few minutes ago after price made that pretty big impulse and getting below this lows. Basically, again, want to target that, but it's a bit too far. So when I saw this happening and I saw this displacement, I thought that was a really good opportunity to buy, to sell, as it also took some liquidity from this high, right? And price could easily just retrace, respect that, and continue to fall, right? That failed, and then we have a 5-minute fair value gap that probably is around here, something like this, right? Thing is that it's mitigated here, a little bit of a range, aggression, and as price was being quite aggressive, I decided to take this this fair value gap on the 1-minute after mitigating a 5-minute fair value gap, due to the fact that when price is aggressive, you will see it doing something like this. It won't really retrace much, or it won't retrace deeply as it could, but it will likely just not move for a bit and then continue with the move, right? So that's what I was kind of expecting, and not entirely what ended up happening. Price did cause a somewhat big retracement. That's where I took my sell, so you can see right there on the little arrow that pops up, and with the stop loss all the way above there, and price just continue to fall, right? The reason to that is the 5-minute fair value gap, right? So you can see it's mitigated around here, but I decided to take it all the way up there. Not decided to take it, saw that price had, like, how do you say this, like peaked higher or aggressively gone higher, and that tends to happen when price takes liquidity. And also in the 1-minute, we can see how this isn't really that much clear structure and actually just generates a bit more liquidity on both sides, right? Takes lower, takes higher, mitigation of something, goes lower, but then that ends up creating more liquidity. The price takes, and then finally causes that that move lower that, again, we could have been expecting. Nothing that we really would have known with much certainty today, due to everything. Honestly, I was expecting actually a rangy session more than what ended up happening. And as you can see, actually by 10, I decided to get away from the charts. So it was around here. And the reason to that is because, well, ICT's kill zone is from 7 to 10. But I've realized over the couple of months, well, yeah, maybe 2 months already, by backtesting and experience, basically, I've realized that up to 11 price still does give some really clean opportunities in some occasions. In some cases, it just doesn't. But in some cases, you do have, as an example today, it still did give this fair value gap up to 11. That will end up being respected. But being honest, it does look a bit more like it ended up being like the PM session, the afternoon session, more than the actual kill zone. But that worked out for me, basically. So yeah, I mean, when I realized that we were having a range a day, not much move and everything, I just decided to stay out of the charts and pretty much stay away. So to sum it up a bit, we have a ton of liquidity to the left. Price takes that aggressively through London. We see some displacement that is respected. Retracement, liquidity, the high is still being respected. Aggression lower, takes liquidity. Fair value gaps are respected. More fair value gaps being created. More aggression, more fair value gaps, more fair value gaps. That's pretty much today's trade. Today's session. But being fully honest, it's not a very clear session. To be honest, we could have had so much cleaner opportunities if we would have had a little bit of a easier or cleaner price action, basically, because there were multiple instances where price just wasn't really giving us much, and neither buying wise or selling wise, right? The only reason why I thought we could still have a bearish day, even though after such a bullish day, is because of this. Price doesn't tend to aggressively go higher unless it's looking for something, right? And the fact that it did all the aggression literally stopped as soon as it took those highs, it was just a little bit of an extra indication for me, right? So early in the morning, I was looking for price to take liquidity and displace lower, which I do have the screenshot around here. Let me actually check. Because as I said, probably, we'll see. Paused it for no reason. But as I said, okay. What did I say? I completely forgot. I was kind of looking for this liquidity to be taken. Those are the lines. Liquidity to be taken, and then to displace lower, retrace, fair value gap, and look for lower time frame entries, right? Such as as it is drawn there. But we never really got that. And the other thing that I was worrying about partially was the fact that yeah, so this is exactly what I said on the Telegram. I just don't want to show my Telegram. Bearish late this could occur, but due to the trend, we need to be careful with the reaction of the bullish fair value gaps, right? So because of that, because of the 15-minute fair value gap or the 5-minute fair value gaps that we had in here, I had to be careful with that because the liquidity was just laying right above that fair value gap, right? That's the liquidity. This is the fair value gap, right? So price took all of that liquidity, reacted to the fair value gap, and this could have worked out, you know? At the same time, of course, again, sweep of liquidity, retracement, taking stop losses, mitigating fair value gap, creation of another fair value gap, continuation. So when the direction is not clear, as in my opinion was today, you just either wait for price to give you a really clear indication that it wants to go this or the other way, and after that you just wait for the lower time frames to give you the extra confirmation that we look for. Otherwise, there's really nothing that we can actually do about a day like this. Could we taken opportunities? Honestly, no. Today, even though again I took this tiny bit of a entry here, the only entry that I could have taken is this one, but it doesn't really come back to the 1 minute fair value gap. Could have taken the 2, the 3 minute, whatever you want, but it would have been still something with such a large stop loss that it just could have not done that. And it happened 10:40, which is still a time that I could trade, but after a rangy session, after a very aggressive London, I prefer to just skip the day, right? On the other hand, this exactly the same. If this would have given a clear entry right away, then we could have definitely taken that, but it didn't really. In the 1 minute, I do believe it does around here, but then it's just taken as liquidity, so it's pretty much the same thing, and it happens after 11, so nothing really for us to do. I just wanted to make this tiny bit of video. Also comment that I am on Telegram now, back on Telegram, because I used to be in the past. Then I just quit it for a bit. It's exactly the same with Instagram, and just coming back, you know, to share some analysis through the session and see if we can all try and learn in the meantime in the live session, right? So that's really all that I wanted to mention for now. I hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you had a fine session, and I'll be seeing you on to the next one.